Hi, everybody. I'm hoping you all can see me. This is our first live stream here on the YouTube channel, so please pardon. There are likely to be some technical glitches, perhaps some audio glitches, but we'll get better at it. Thank you, anyone who's joined us. I'm not quite sure whether we're still live or not. Let me have a look. I think we are. Okay, so thank you everybody, whoever's joined us here on this YouTube channel. My name is Anubha Bhonsle. I'm presuming if you are on the channel, you do know a little bit about us. I run something called Newsworthy. We are relatively new. We have a very small following here on YouTube, but I thought I'll come here and do this live session essentially to tell you a little bit about us, a little bit about Newsworthy, a little bit about myself, a little bit perhaps about our workflows, a little bit about what we're trying to do, a little bit about what this year has been for us, how we work. I'm also going to be sort of this one-man army. It's very, very different from when I was in the so-called mainstream media space. I was at CNN IBN. I left as its executive editor. Prior to that, I was at NDTV, so I've spent a good amount of my journalistic career in the broadcast medium. Vishal, thank you very much. You're the first comment I put online. Essentially, I was saying I'm a bit of a one-man army here because life has changed so much, technology has changed so much. I've had a lot of learning to do and a lot of unlearning to do. I think more unlearning than learning since I quit the mainstream media and became, and not just an independent journalist, but also an entrepreneur of sorts. I do realize we are a bit late as far as this entire live business is concerned. We haven't really gone live on YouTube at all. Um, I think there are a couple of reasons for that. A little bit of it is pure lethargy. Um, I just haven't had the time and the space and the mental bandwidth to put everything together. So much of it has been concentrated on our work, on our stories, on about what we want to report on. I also have to tell you that we run a really fantastic, funky, gutsy, sort of like a zeitgeist kind of a feed on Instagram. I'm going to show you our address. So if you are somebody who's on Instagram and do scroll around, you'll find our feed to be a mix of good news stories told in a very interesting format. And why I say we're zeitgeist in a sense that we have a little bit of music, a little bit of art and poetry thrown in as well. Some of this is sort of work in progress. It's as we've gone along, we've added some of these things. So it's work in progress in that sense. But here on YouTube, we are primarily news. We're doing a lot of videos that are sort of trying to get into a story, a deep dive into the story, joining the dots, unpacking them, and really explaining to you what it's all about. I haven't really gotten to that discussion more yet. I do believe it's something I have to do eventually. So in 2021, you can expect a lot of it. There are some comments coming in, so I'm going to try and show them for you. Ashish, this is an amazing initiative. As a viewer, I do look forward to less noise, more analysis, and brilliant delivery, which you're known for. I know all of you can read this message. See, this is what I mean by unlearning. While in the mainstream media, we are so used to reading and constantly sort of amplifying for people what they can already see. So that's a little bit of unlearning I need to do. A lot of it, I think. But Ashish, thank you. And I have always believed, right since I quit the mainstream media space, and I'm going to be very mindful on this live feed that this is not a rant against mainstream media. You already know what's wrong. But my idea here is to explain Newsworthy and what was something I was not able to achieve while I was in that mainstream media space. And I think I'm using this word mainstream media because it's really what we've got used to talking about. But I think I read Sainath in a recent article say that how can you call how can you call sort of this bunch of media outfits as mainstream if they don't really cover 70% of this country, or they don't cover issues that matter, etc. So I'm using the word mainstream with those air quotes. So here's what I believed in. I thought that there was obviously more noise, more polarization, more conflict. But more than that, I thought there was this sort of dumbing down to the point of sort of it being incoherent, it being completely foolish and buffoonery, right? So my hope always was that there was enough audience that wanted news to be told in interesting ways. So this was a little bit of claiming back the news space, claiming back integrity, claiming back public faith. And I also did not want to be old school and clunky about it. I did want to use all the tools that the new media space provided for, and use them to the best of our ability to do good, strong storytelling. So just a little bit about how long we've been in action. I think our sort of follower or our subscriber count or our sub count would indicate to you we are very, very, very small. And I think I don't see it as a reflection of us not attracting too many people. I think it's just a reflection of the fact that we haven't possibly been consistent. We haven't come out every day. We haven't sort of cracked the algorithm in that sense. We're not producing long pieces of content, but that's something we're working on. We're a really small team. There's me, myself. I think I work 26 hours in a day. If there were 26 hours, I would be working 26 hours in a day. I have to say that I'm working much, much harder compared to what I worked when I was at a television channel. And I thought I worked really hard at that point in time. Part of the reason that I'm sort of overstretched is that I'm currently looking at both sides. I'm currently looking at to produce the best journalism possible, to produce it in the best way possible, to devoid it of baggage, to devoid it of old clunky ways of journalism. So use everything that the new media space gives out. And at the same point in time, I do need to sort of get in the funds, right, to keep this going, to make sure that the teams and the people that we're working in, etc., have everything that is possible. I'm happy to take in questions. We named it. It's an AMA session, so please throw in some of your questions on the chat box, and I'll make sure that I answer them. The AMA is exactly for this purpose. So I'm just going to play out some of the comments, and then I can go back to a little bit I wanted to talk about, and I'm happy to change course completely and do this as something that sort of answers your questions if you've been here on Newsworthy and if you've liked anything that we do. Yes, Vishal, I played out your comment. Ashish, thank you very much for that kind comment. Well, news with knowledge, we do try to give the text and the context, as I like to say. Rahul, yes, thank you very much. We need all the wishes. And we're hoping to continue to do good work, better work, more robust work, more work from the ground. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because I think that is a big lacuna as of now. I've never been a journalist who sat just on the sort of anchor's chair or in the studio and sort of pontificated about issues. I've always been a journalist who's been on the ground, and I take great pride in that. I've always wanted to be on the field and just sort of cover the story to the best of my ability. And I have to say that, journalists and you're not a journalist, or you're not a reporter, or you cannot even be an editor if you've not done that. That's something I strongly believe in. And I think a lot of what we see, so to speak, on television screens right now is really a reflection of people who've not been on the ground, who don't really understand how this country works, or who've just spent far too much time in AC environments. Having said that, as I said, this is not a rant about mainstream media. This is just a reflection of what the last couple of months have been for us, what Newsworthy is all about. If you'd like to know maybe a little bit about our team, about how we work, about how we go about making some of these decisions. Amit, yes, Ravish, yes, Ravish comes up very, very often on our channel. That's and there's a story to that, and perhaps I'll just take a minute or two to talk about it. A lot of people say this that yes, they came to YouTube to our particular channel on Newsworthy after Ravish recommended it. Ravish is an old friend of mine. We were colleagues at NDTV. We've sort of met each other on and off, really on an assignment or two, but nothing more than that. And just I think a couple of days after I put out my first video that articulated what I wanted to do with Newsworthy and why I wanted to do the things that I wanted to do, I saw Ravish put out a Facebook post. I hadn't really seen it the day he put out, but I know a lot of people sort of looked at that and came onto our channel and left us comments, left us good wishes, left us great expectations. And I think, as happens with a lot of people, also left us sort of threats and stuff, as happens to a lot of people who follow Ravish. And yes, I saw sort of, I saw a flurry of those messages on my comments. And for a moment, I had thought, hey, we're doing some good work, and see, people are already writing and commenting to us. But when I saw that thread running through, I realized a lot of them came via Ravish's post. So Amit, I know you've come through Ravish, many others have come through as well, and I'm hoping you've stayed on because of the work we've done. So yes, thank you to Ravish, who's a great friend, and I get a lot of requests that I should bring him in on the channel as well as a lot of requests that we should do a lot of our work on Hindi. In Hindi, it'll be far more useful. I have to say, this is also something that's in the pipeline. जी हमें मुझे बहुत कमेंट्स मिलते हैं कि अरे आप अंग्रेज़ी बोलती हैं, हिंदी नहीं बोलती हैं। जी मैं बिल्कुल हिंदी बोलती हूँ, मैं अच्छी हिंदी बोलती हूँ। ये सब चीज़ें शुरू करने से पहले मैंने जागरण न्यू मीडिया में काफ़ी महीने काम किया था, उनकी डिजिटल मीडिया टीम सेटअप करी थी, और जो इलेक्शंस थे वो जागरण न्यू मीडिया उनका एक डिजिटल आउटफिट है, उसके लिए मैंने काम किया था। तो जी हाँ, मुझे बिल्कुल हिंदी आती है, और हिंदी बोलने में, हिंदी का चैनल चलाने में मुझे कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। लेकिन ये भी कोई शक नहीं है कि मेरी ज़्यादातर जो पत्रकारिता है वो अंग्रेज़ी में हुई है। हमारे जो सारे वर्क फ्लोज हैं वो अभी अंग्रेज़ी में हैं, और इसलिए दिस इज़ अ स्टेप बाय स्टेप। इंग्लिश, हिंदी दोनों में हम काम करेंगे, दोनों में हम पत्रकारिता करेंगे, और दोनों में हम उसी तरह की पत्रकारिता करेंगे जिस तरह की पत्रकारिता हम करना चाहते हैं। शंकर, did you leave television news for the same reason like PP Vajpayee? I think you mean Punya Prasoon, Abhisar or Faye. Please be more forthright about the pressures you faced from your TV bosses for speaking against the government. Shankar, I think there's a little bit of sort of insinuation in that question, if I might call it, that you think that I will not be forthright. I don't think I'm left for the same reasons. I don't quite know what are the reasons Punya Prasoon or Faye or Abhisar left their respective channels. I've seen bits and pieces, but I'm not completely sure. I don't think their departures were as public as people would like to sort of join the dots and say. I can tell you why I left. I left far before many of these people left, right? No offense to them, no offense to the people who are still continuing in the mainstream media. I left for the US on a Fulbright fellowship in 2015. In 2014, CNN IBN had been taken over by Reliance. Our entire editorial and sort of management had been completely wiped out, so to speak, and there were new people in charge. I stuck around almost for about a year, 2014 to 2015. It was not the newsroom that I had grown up in. It was not the newsroom I was used to. It was not the newsroom that I thought was very invested in journalism. I think it was still early days then. So the pulls and pressures perhaps were there, but came to you in sort of very in signals. They weren't sort of as forthright as they have now become. A little bit of it was evident in the stories you picked up. A little bit of it was evident in the morning meetings and the stories that didn't make it to television. But all of it was far more sort of under the layers. It wasn't as blatant or as overt at that point in time. I left for the US, and I was there on a Fulbright fellowship. I still continued to be an employee of Network 18 even after I left. I covered a lot of work for them from the United States. One of the reasons for leaving, of course, was my complete dissatisfaction in the work that I was doing. And I think at that point in time, when I left for the US, my decision was more a personal one. Um, I came back. I was supposed to be there, I think, only for about 10, 11 months, but I stayed there almost for about 2 years. I covered the 2016 election, the US elections from DC for CNN IBN. I worked very closely with CNN. So that was a great experience for me. I was an international correspondent who had stayed in America for about 2 years, and I covered it really with fresh eyes. I enjoyed that assignment immensely. I hadn't, I think, quite made up my mind whether I still wanted to come back to my old organization in really the same roles, etc. But I remember when I came back in 2016 in December, um, I think the reason I went back was a little bit of peer pressure, a little bit of sort of, thinking, hey, let's give this one more shot and see whether I have a little bit more of TV left in me. Um, just sort of wanting to put in use a lot of the things that I had learned in the States, right? There was sort of a different bit of work ethic. There was a little bit of new sort of tricks. There was a little bit of doing things more efficiently. I had also had a chance to see where the world was going, and I was very, very keen to use some of that. So I gave it one more shot, but I think I think I knew it on day one or day two after I walked back to the newsroom that I will not be able to survive for very long. And I think this was 2017 Jan onwards. And I think I saw the newsroom a very, very different place. And I think perhaps if I had stayed on and I hadn't gone to the US, I would have seen this slow diminishment. But I think because I came back from a completely different environment, it shocked me. And, I continue to sort of muster and gather courage, but I had a pittish feeling in my stomach every day that I used to go to this newsroom. It was in 2017, and I didn't have a good time. And I think I have to be honest about it. I didn't have a good time, not because there was pressure and there were pulls, etc. I think my biggest shock was that it was so entrenched, right, into the newsroom, into the media space, that I was simply shocked. How are we agreeing to this? How are we putting this on air? How is it that we have only 5 stories to choose from? How is it that we're not covering this? How is it that we have no reporter here? How is it that this story is sort of just tiny bits, right? We don't have a full picture. How is all of this being allowed? And what I realized was that slow diminishment was really part of the process. It was so well entrenched in the newsroom that it was extremely tough to fight. I mean, I was the executive editor. It was tough to fight for me. Supposing I wanted to do a particular story and I thought there was great merit and I fought it out. But if the entire ecosystem is not working towards that story, you can't do it as a lone ranger, especially in the medium that television is, right? Television is a very different medium from print or from digital, even for that matter. It's sort of teamwork. So if you're not doing it, you're not doing it, right? And no matter how hard you try, you can't really do a sole story just by yourself. And anyway, television doesn't work like that. I'm not like a lone ranger in that sense. I can't just pick up my bag every day and say, hey, this is the story that I want to do, whether the channel wants to do it or not. There is a process to follow. I mean, I realized it pretty early on that no, I wouldn't be able to do it. And I think I tried. I tried a lot. I gave it a good shot, but I couldn't manage. And I think about 8-9 months later is when I quit. And I'm hoping, Shankar, to your very short question and my really long answer, I have answered that to the best of my ability. Deepa, thank you so much. Vishal, you put out a comment again. Thank you. I mean, I value this trust, and I value your comments and the fact that you guys engage with us. Yes, I remember that interview with the late Manohar Parikar as well. I think it was in August or July or August of 2015. It was one of the last times that I interacted with him as well. Cephas, if I have pronounced your name correctly, I'm hoping I have. thank you. And this means a lot, right? And this has been my aim as far as covering the farm bill protests. I also have to say that we started covering it really in September. September, yes, when the bills came to Parliament and were passed. We started covering it then. We covered the blockade in Punjab and the rail roko in Punjab in great detail. And one of the reasons for doing it was that one was seeing this churning happening. This a lot of people forget that this farm bill protest that's happening outside Delhi's borders in Singhu and in Tikri isn't sort of hasn't just happened suddenly. Farmers haven't got up and sort of done this suddenly, right? And I mean, we're seeing them sustaining themselves. This was coming. There were enough signs of it coming. And I was talking to a lot of my friends in Punjab, journalists, as well as other farm leaders who I've known during the course of my work. And they all kept hinting to this, that this was happening. It was very, very surprising for me. And I think I said that in one of the videos that we put out, that, a state had been cut because there was a rail roko. A state had been cut, I think, for almost about 2 months. For almost about 60 days, no trains were plying to that state. And I found it really odd that mainstream media just simply hadn't covered it. Because if we had, we would have realized that this was coming. And this is not to say that the agitation has not been well covered. To be honest, I think scratch that. I'm not sure whether it has been well covered or not. But all I'm saying is that if we were covering some of these things as exhaustively as journalists should, we would have realized that this was coming. Farouk, yes. I'm hoping we are fresh, and I'm hoping we cut the clutter. I'm sorry, I'm taking Shekhar's sort of tagline of his show, but I'm hoping that we sort of go past this noise and go past this din, and are sort of a voice of clarity and a voice of reason. So I'm hoping. What do you think is best journalism? Facts. A good journalism. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing. Okay. What is good journalism? Well, good journalism is journalism that is, I'm not going to use the words like balance and, take both sides. To be honest, in my entire career as a journalist, I don't think that's a good definition. I don't know why journalism schools and colleges give that definition to students who join, that take both sides, be balanced. I don't think it is. I don't think journalism is ever about balance, especially if balance is a smokescreen, right? I believe good journalism is journalism that goes on the ground. Believe good journalism is journalism that goes the extra length. One of my close friends, Rahul Pandita, sort of coined this word of clean bedsheet journalism, and I've used it very often when I've spoken about in this context. What did he mean when he said clean bedsheet journalism? Essentially, he meant that you can't be a journalist if you're worried about. You can't be a good journalist. Facts, opinions, I'm answering you. You can't be a good journalist if you're constantly worried about clean bed sheets or returning to the comfort of a clean, warm bed, a good hotel. Not that all of those things are not important. Of course they are. And, you need rest and you need care and you need food and all of that. But if you're constantly worried about that, if you're constantly worried about returning back to a hotel, if you're not willing to go that extra mile, if you're not willing to understand the story, if you're not willing to join the dots. And again, I'm putting my professor here, if we are not constantly thinking about joining the dots and the linkages, we might as well be stenographers, right? We're not stenographers, we're good journalists when we do all of the above. I think it's a bit of a personal motto for me, but I think we're also good journalists if we're empathetic. Empathy is really something that's lost in our entire journalistic practice. We just lack empathy completely. I think all of these things would make a good journalist. A slight aside, I also think a good journalist is someone who just doesn't know his craft but knows more about the world, is interested in more about the world. I personally am someone who is a bit like that. I am a little bit of a restless person, and I like to know things. I like to know about lives. I like to know about how things have impacted people's lives. I like to listen about all of this. I'm not sure whether all of this adds up to being a good journalist, but I think it does. And I remember in my first couple of years as a journalist, Pranoy used to say this often, that he used to say this, like, I've heard him say twice in the 5 years that I spent at NDTV, where he said that I don't care whether you're a good journalist or not, but if you're not a good human being, that matters. I think it may sound like a bit sort of cliche, etc., but I think there's something deep in that core that's very, very true. And I've seen that to be true for a lot of people who are good journalists. I also think a bit of grit and a bit of bravery is, and I don't mean bravery in sort of the conventional way, but I think a little bit of, I think not a little bit, I think a good chunk of grit is very important for being a good journalist. Yeah, I think so. If I think of more, maybe I'll come back to this question, facts and opinions. Um, Let me answer one more. Joshua, how about collaboration? Okay, Joshua, tell me more. What do you mean by collaboration? Are we going to collaborate with other people? Are we going to collaborate with other outfits? Are you going to see our work in other places? Yes, yes, yes. All of it. We're already doing some collaborations. And we're talking about them pretty overtly. In fact, on Instagram, we have an entire this entire month we're showcasing our collaborations, and maybe in just a little bit I'll take you through my Instagram feed as well and show you and sort of guide you as to why you must follow us on Instagram as well. Here's also my chance to tell you what we are on Instagram. Yes, so right up there. Follow us on Instagram. You love the feed. I am very, very sure of what we put out there and how exciting, young, complete, robust, and fun it is, as well as all the elements that you want good journalism to have. It has all of that. I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about my team in a bit. I'll just put out some more comments. You've been following me since my stint with NDTV, Farouk. Thank you so much. What's your take on, sorry, facts? I don't know why, as soon as I press your, what's my take on presenting facts and opinion? Facts and opinions is asking me that. I'm going to come back to that. I'm noting that. I'm not running away from this answer, but I just thought that since I answered one of your questions in great detail, I will give some of the others a chance. Preeti, is digital the best form of real journalism now? Preeti, it's a great question, and I think yes. I think what's happened, especially this year, 2020. Let me just talk about and answer it from this year. I think what's happened this year is that it has given a lot of independent journalists a level playing field. Why do I say that? I mean, most television organizations are currently running on Zoom or virtually, or calling their guests via Zoom links or Restream links or streaming live from drawing rooms, etc. Right? I mean, I have the same advantage today, right? I also have the advantage of sort of accessing the same people. I have the sort of extra advantage of doing good, robust, strong journalism and picking on the stories that I want to do. To be honest, Preeti, I often say to a lot of people, and I do sometimes do lectures. I don't think I should say sometimes. I often do lectures in journalism colleges where I say this, that this is actually the best time to be a journalist, primarily because it's so easy to do good journalism, primarily because so few people are doing it. There are also tough sides to it. I mean, we'll talk about that, and some of that is possibly evident to you, but just in terms of the storytelling and in terms of technology and in terms of I think the only problem is funding, right? The only problem is trying to sustain it. But the ability to do good journalism easily is far greater. Is far greater right now. Okay, I'm getting some virtual hugs from Akshi. Thank you. Shankar, I am glad that I have answered your question in great detail. Dhirendra, thank you. This means a lot, and I'm taking thanks not just for myself, but please, I'm also taking thanks for my team. We're a really small team. You've possibly seen some of us. Pallavi Prasad, who is often on the channel and does a stellar COVID update. She used to do it thrice a week. She's now doing it twice a week. Is sort of an important, not just an important part, she's an important backbone. That most decisions are taken collectively, and I'm saying most, but actually I mean all decisions are taken collectively. We also have a young girl called Ananya Pandey, who is currently interning with us and learning the ropes and realizing what a mad medium journalism is, a digital space is, all of that is. So yes, I'm taking thanks from all of you. Actually, of all the stories I've covered since turning independent, which one is or are closest to your heart? Actually, I have to be honest about this. I think the ones that are closest to my heart are ironically the ones that I haven't covered in as much detail as I would have. But I take great pride in being in Kashmir as an independent journalist. I think about 2 days after Article 370 was abrogated. It was, to be honest, my first assignment as an independent journalist, and I possibly couldn't have found a tougher one in that sense, right? I mean, everyone knows of the scenario soon after Article 370 was abrogated in Kashmir, sort of empty roads, curfew, not being able to access many of the things that we had taken for granted, not being able to access transportation, not being able to sort of make a call, not having internet, all of these things. But I managed to cover it, and I take great pride in it, right? I also completely self-funded it, and I think I came back and wrote for a couple of organizations, and to be honest, I didn't even make 7,000, 8,000 rupees out of it, and I spent a lot of money in that period. It was entirely funded by me, and the only reason I'm trying to say that is that it gave me sort of an indication as to how expensive it was going to be. Not that I didn't know that earlier, but I think my biggest pride is in the fact that I was willing to take that plunge. I know several independent journalists and freelance journalists have always done it, but I'm just speaking here for myself, who had the comfort or the security that does come with a mainstream media organization backing you, etc. Right? So I take great pride in that, and I also take great pride in covering the riots that happened in Delhi. I'll scratch that. Taking pride is not the right word, but I think I covered it really to the best of my ability. I covered it again as an independent journalist. I was out on the field. I covered it to the best of my ability. I got a lot of criticism for it as well. But I've always prided myself in being a journalist whose process is impeccable. So, which is why it's very tough to sort of slot me on a left or right. I wrote a book on the Armed Forces Special Powers Act in Manipur, and I covered the defense. I don't know of too many defense journalists who aren't completely embedded to the system. So I have taken great pride in my journalistic career in sort of keeping my process completely overboard. So again, a long answer to a really short question. I think these two, and I take great pride in just Newsworthy as it plays out on Instagram, just as sort of a product, and this is the entrepreneurial me talking. I take great pride in how we have set up that grid, how we have set up the feed, how we really use that medium so well to tell stories. And I have to keep a reminder for myself that I need to take people through that Instagram feed as well. Actually, I'm hoping I've answered your question. Is it possible for journalism to be unbiased and impartial? How is human perception, cognitive bias accounted for in journalism? Shirish, that's a stellar question, and I think that's a question that you've put out so articulately. It's impossible for a human being to be completely unbiased or not to have a cognitive bias, right? You enter any story. And which is why I often say that it's our process that has to be unbiased, right? When we are entering a situation, and that's why you need journalism, right? This is a craft, this is a training. You need, I sometimes get this thing, anyone can be a journalist. Of course, anyone can be a journalist. And this was a criticism I got a lot when I used to lead the citizen journalism citizen journalism show at CNN IBN. But the idea of that show was very different. Most people didn't get that, right? So it's our process that has to be unbiased. It's our process that has to be impeccable. It's our understanding, our learning, our joining the dots, our ability to get the first material, our ability to get deeper material, our ability to understand the text and the context, that has to be impeccable. And I think if you have that in place, and if you can keep your ego in check, then you will realize that all that material will either fall with your cognitive bias or may fall completely sort of on the other side of your bias, right? And as a journalist, you need to let all that material be the story, not your cognitive bias. So just sort of, a lot of people who don't really know how journalism works. And I think, we've come at a time, especially the way the technology is and the media is, that we need to talk a little bit about our process as well. We can't sort of, sit in our editorial meetings and decide these are the 5 stories we are going to cover. It is now incumbent for us in this landscape that we find ourselves to explain the choices as to how did we reach those 5 and why did we drop the 4, and what do we not know about the other 3, and what are the other 2 that we are working on, etc. So yes, if your process follows an unbiased rhythm and goes through that entire checklist, I think you can fight cognitive bias very, very easily. I'm hoping that answers your question, Shirish. Pranav, you appreciate. Thank you. That's very kind of you and very sweet of you. Um, uh, who can I answer more? What are your sources for news? Please explain, and names too. Do you mean, Devendra, do you want to just explain that question a little bit? Do you mean what are the things I read and process and take my information from? And do you mean news sources like that, or do you mean something else? I'm happy to come back and circle back to that question and answer it. Present government, do you feel post the present government regime, the news pattern will again take a different turn? Do you mean once this government goes, and if there is a new incumbent, if there is a new government after the elections, the news pattern will take a different turn? I think someone said this, that, when the media sort of learns to crawl, or when the media is crawling, and one regime goes and another regime comes, the next regime is not going to sort of be waiting in open arms and let you stand up. First of all, you may have lost the ability to stand up. That's a possibility. Many skills are now absent in our, again, mainstream media news space. We don't know many things. Fresh batch journalists don't know many things that were a part of sort of journalism or journalistic career. So, first of all, you may not know how to stand up again. And I think if whatever the next regime is, or it's the same regime or it's a new regime, I don't think once you've learned to crawl, they are going to let you stand up so easily. So, and when you start crawling for one, then you need to crawl for many others, right? So I'm hoping that I've answered your question in sort of, I've not taken a roundabout route, but I'm hoping I've answered your question. You should promote your channel and do some digital marketing because the viewership is very low. Everyday Hindi and English both will make your channel very popular. You're one of the best journalists. Zeta, I wish I had the money to put into marketing right now. English and Hindi is an absolutely good suggestion, and I have that on my cards. I don't want to keep this channel as a language sort of language specific channel. I speak English and Hindi fairly comfortably. My journalistic career has been in at least English and Hindi. I don't think I can sort of make it more than bilingual right now, but yes, this is very much on the cards. I think digital marketing is not on the cards right now. The viewership is low, but I'm hoping that with a lot of live work and a good sort of adding more work to it, we'll pick up on that. I don't think it's that tough. I mean, it is tough, but I don't think we have the option to put resources on digital marketing right now. I'd rather put resources in getting in a good journalist or in helping a journalist sort of be on the ground and tell a story better. It's just something that we can't afford right now, but maybe in the future. Shirish, I think I've answered. Biju, and also surprised to see that its penetration is low. What could be the reasons? How are you going to address this? Biju, I've looked through this, and I know why the penetration is low. The viewership is low, and I think that's primarily for a couple of reasons. We haven't really sort of been on YouTube really long enough. To be honest, we've been on YouTube only for about effectively only for about 2 months. I did put out that announcement video about 3 months ago, but by the time our workflows and our work processes were in place, I think almost about a month had passed. We were also facing some nicks in between, so there was a lack of consistency, right? I have now addressed all of that, which is why I have come forward to do this first live and first streaming. We were also testing a couple of softwares. I'm also someone who likes to get processes right and workflows right. We did spend a little bit of time on that, and I know, and I think one of the reasons is that we've been slow on the live game and we've been slow on the streaming game. And I think once that sort of picks up, we will. You will see the numbers rise. And of course, I'm going to call out to many of you who like the channel, but I pointed out that the penetration is low. I'm going to call out your names and ask you to share this, ask you to share it among friends and family, and share our work if you like it, engage with it. I'm also happy to take suggestions from you and sort of pick out issues that you want to know more about or you want to talk about. Um, uh, Jasvinder, you find our work unbiased. Keep up the good work, and the viewership will follow. That is so nice of you, so kind of you. Thank you very much. Um, I am thinking of trying to wrap up this. I've gone on for about 45 minutes. I'm just going to scroll up through the chat box and see if there's anybody who I have left and not answered. I think I left out one question from Facts and Opinions. Okay, there are some new messages that have come in. Akshay, you're a software engineer, but journalism is something that interests you. Would you like to point to resources? A one-on-one course from my end, yes. I think I should. That could be a business and a revenue model, right? A one-on-one course on journalism. I should start that. Akshay, to be honest, I don't know what are the good resources to become a good journalist. Everything that I've learned about journalism is on the field. I did go to a college. I went to Sophia College in Bombay to do my postgrad, and that's where I learned anything that I learned about journalism sort of in a real way. There were courses on writing. Jerry Pinto, the fabulous author, he was one of our teachers, and I remember one of our first assignments was he got a lot of these chits to class, and we just picked out one chit, and it had bus numbers, right? And your assignment was that you sat on the bus and you took a day on the bus, and you just, wherever the bus went, you started at the start point, and wherever the bus ended, you went up to there and sort of circled back and wrote a piece. And you should have seen the diversity that came from that one assignment. Someone wrote about the person who was sitting next to him or her. Someone wrote about me. Someone wrote about what was at the end. Someone wrote about the driver. So it was a fabulous assignment. So I think that's a little bit of what I learned from there. P. Sainath was there, so there was a lot of critical thinking. A fabulous journalist called Smriti Kopikar, who has written for really Outlook and has covered Maharashtra and the urban crisis so well, was also someone who came in. So I think all that I learned from that part of my so-called journalism education is just critical thinking and exposure. But I think everything else is on the job, Akshay. So I am sorry, I'm such a wrong person to answer this question in some ways. I mean, I know you're a software engineer and you want to do journalism, but maybe you could sort of shadow somebody who you admire and who you like, and maybe you can see whether that is something you want to do. A good sort of shoe leather journalism is not a glamorous job at all. It's tiring, it's continuous, it stays in your head for long, it has an impact. So it's not all what you see on television or what you read about. There's sort of a lot of legwork, a lot of thinking, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of constantly thinking about a story. At least it happened like that for me. Virendra, that is such a okay, that is governments across state violate the right. That is such a good suggestion, Virendra. I'm going to make a note of it. I'm going to make a note of it, and I will, yeah, that's something I'm going to note off and perhaps do something on those lines. One, one news house that I would like to get myself associated with. No, no, no. I've done my bit. I've been associated with all media houses that I had to. I don't want to be associated with anybody. I know that comes as a surprise, but there's no one I want to join and sort of aspire to join, at least here in India. I'd want to join a couple abroad, but not to join, but to perhaps learn things. So yeah, no, I don't want to join anybody. I think I have answered a lot of you. It's time for me to wrap up this particular live feed. As I said, this was our first here on Instagram. Sorry, first here on YouTube. See, this is what happens when you're trying to run multiple social media accounts. Can I take you through some of this and tell you how you can sort of where you can find us and what you do on Instagram? As I said, we run a lovely feed. Why don't I take this opportunity to just show you that feed, and then I will. Okay, so let's bring that feed in, and that is the feed, right? So that goes as newsworthy, and let me take you through that, right? So this the first stack is what I'm talking about. We do music and we do a good piece of art. Maybe I can show you what this is. Could you hear it? So yeah, we do this. We do a really cool art post every day. I love this one. Let me show it to you. You're overthinking, right? And I suppose you're an expert in the subtle art of thinking precisely the right amount. I love that one, right? Um, I'm going to use it. Okay, let me also just take you through the feed. This is Pallavi, and Pallavi is now putting out a weekly sort of vaccine update. I have to get you guys to listen to this one. I'm not going to play it out here completely, but this is a complete update of India's vaccination plans. See, on Saturday and Sunday, we are sort of a little lazy. We do want to take time to be with our families and do other things as well. But we're constantly on top of the news. This is the study. This is my study from where I am doing this live stream. It's technically my life. My life is here, right? Um, I want to talk a little bit about collaborations. I think one of you put out collaborations. I want to talk to you a little bit about collaborations. I'll go a little down here, right? These are some of the collaborations that we're running and showcasing all of December. This is a collaboration we did with women leaders in global health. It's called Women Lift Health. We did profiles and videos and interviews with 4 women from South Asia that were both at the top of their game in public health leadership as well as public service. So this is one collaboration I'm extremely proud of. I am also, yeah, there is Hina Jilani, lawyer, human rights activist from Pakistan. She's the second person we profiled for that series. I love that interview we did with her. I am also doing a lot of collaborations and opening up the space to photographers and filmmakers. We are being able to pay some of them. We're not being able to pay some of them. This is Rohit Jain's photography, and he has really profiled young survivors of the Bhopal gas tragedy who are finding it tough, especially during this pandemic. So this is something again on our grid. We have put out a little bit snippets of Pratap Bhanu Mehta's fabulous lecture at Project 39, where he's talked about dissent. And there are little snippets of that. I think you'd like that as well. I want to showcase this. This got a lot of attention. I'm very proud of this work. This is a fabulous documentary photographer called Naveen Macro. He is working with us and shooting these beautiful sequences of the farmers' protests and what's happening at both the Singhu border degree. One of the reasons for show is that, and I think Pallavi's written out a great description for this on our Instagram feed. And basically, yes, we believe news needs all the facts and all the context, and all the joining the dots and sort of showcasing things as they are. But journalism also needs empathy, silence, pause, the ability to just listen, the ability to give space to people to let them say what they say. And I think this particular series, you'll be able to see the thumbnails. They're very particular and they're very calm and nice and very stunning. You'll be able to see them. I think we put 4 or 5 already and we quite enjoy them. So yes, this is what our grid looks like. I would urge you to sort of join us here on Instagram. This is one of our popular videos. We sourced it from Nafisa Ali, and this is a throwback, Lucky Ali. So, which is why I say that this is a feed. The Instagram feed that I'm showing you is sort of slightly zeitgeist. You'll find a lot of news. You'll find things that are newsworthy, but you will also find things that are life worthy. Okay, so I have gone on long enough, 52 minutes. No wonder television talks all the time. Television anchors talk all the time. I'm not one now. I'm now an independent journalist. My name is Anubha Bhonsle. If you've been on this live feed, I appreciate your time, your attention, your questions. You're watching us here on YouTube. Subscribe to this channel if you think we've been worthy of your time and attention. Click on that bell icon. I think you know the drill better than me. And this was our first live stream. And my sort of reach out to you was that you can ask me really anything. We're just concentrating on 2 to 3 channels. We do have larger plans. I haven't talked about what I plan for 2021, but maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do that. We'll do that when 2021 comes. Shankar and everyone who joined us on this live feed, thank you very much and have a nice evening ahead. I'll see you soon. Bye.